So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started here and toss it to Molly in a moment. So hi, everyone. We're really grateful you come and joined us this evening or whatever time it is for you. I am Ashley. I'm the Director of Communications at the Vasculitis Foundation. But really the most important part, we've got Molly here with us tonight. I'm going to give you a little bio of Molly in a moment. But first, some housekeeping. I wanted to let you know that at the end of this workshop, which I'm sure everyone's going to love, Molly's just such a delight, there's a survey that lets us know what you loved, what you didn't like, what you want more of. It's quick. If you can fill that out at the end, that would mean a lot to us so we can continue offering programming that's meaningful to you. So that will just pop up on your screen at the end of this program. The other thing is, please make use of the chat box. But most importantly, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a Q&A box. Molly at the end will be taking questions. So if you have a question throughout the program, go ahead and click on that Q&A box and put your question in there, and perhaps we'll have time to answer yours at the end of this program. I think that was all my housekeeping, so I'm just going to read you a little bit about Molly. So Molly McManus, who's our host or our guest presenter tonight, is a certified yoga therapist, a somatic educator, an Ayurvedic health counselor, and an Ayurvedic chef who offers private sessions and small group classes. She co-owns Yoga North International SomaYoga Institute. She's the co-founder of the methodology SomaYoga and a board president for the International Association of Yoga Therapists. She's inspired by the efficacy of yoga therapy to resolve human suffering and the ways it uncovers and supports our innate ability to thrive. And as someone herself who manages the complex health diagnosis of EGPA, so she also has vasculitis, she shares from a platform of self-compassion and kindness and sees yoga therapy as a path to whole being, well-being. So Molly, we're thrilled to have you. I'm going to go ahead and toss it to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And thanks to this wonderful organization for, inviting me to be with you today. I would like to share my screen for a little while with a PowerPoint presentation and just to lay some groundwork for the work we're going to do today. And then we'll do a practice for most of the time. So just the beginning will be some talking and getting some things across. So I'm going to try that. We'll see how the technology goes here. Hopefully everybody is able to see that okay.
Yeah, it looks great, Molly.
Great, wonderful. And I'll just get myself adjusted a little here. All right, so you showed up to something called Reducing Pain and Anxiety with SomaYoga. And to me, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, especially when I think about those of us who experience vasculitis in its many different forms and the many ways that it might affect us with either pain, anxiety, overwhelm, all of those things that might happen for you if you are also experiencing vasculitis in your life. So we really already did this introduction, but I do want to just say I was diagnosed in 2022. It was a harrowing experience, as many of you maybe have also had that experience. And my hope for today is really to continue to develop ways to support others with vasculitis or complex medical conditions. So I want to see that we could feel better in our bodies, in our minds, in our breath right now, even though we can't change exactly what's going on for us. We can do a lot of things to help support our health and well-being, but we also have to be with where we are. And I know that it can be very stressful to have this life experience. And so I think this work is really about how do we get to the other side of some of that. So the work that I do is called SomaYoga, and SomaYoga is a kind of yoga that is maybe a little different than what you see on social media and on marketing. And it's not, twisting yourself up into little pretzel shapes and standing on your head. It's really actually working with understanding ourselves from the inside out and to actually get better at something called interoception, and then bringing movement and awareness back into our lives in different ways. So kind of meeting ourselves in new ways. So the reason that this is important is that with Soma Yoga, we know, and maybe all of us know, that every experience that we have in our life is a bodily experience. It doesn't just go in through our senses. It doesn't just land in the mind. Everything comes in and it lands in our whole being. And so the nervous system is constantly working to adapt and to respond to these things that happen in our environment. So maybe today's a good day and you're feeling good, and life is going pretty well. You're getting some movement, you've gotten good food for the day, but then tomorrow you get some news that's hard to deal with, or you wake up with more pain. And so our sensory motor systems are continuously responding to these things. And what will happen to many of us is that we will start to have some reflexes or some responses to these triggers that happen in our body that go underground. They get really habituated, and then that can cause more. It's sort of like a vicious cycle, right? And so I want to look at 3 responses and sort of how they show up for us. And maybe if you can at home, start thinking about which one seems really familiar to you as we go through them, and which one maybe is the furthest away, or the one that you use the less in your body and mind. So I might actually even say, if you can, do some of these postures with me as I go through them. So the first experience or stress response I want to speak to is something called green light. And it's an adaptation of what's called the Landau reflex. And this is a reflex everybody has. It's the impetus to move, to lift our head, to get going. And what happens in this reflex is the whole back body starts to get activated and turned on, tightened, and it gets, sort of that lifting and moving forward response. So try this on in your body if you don't mind. Notice where your sit bones are right now. Notice where your feet are right now. And then if you can, start to tilt so that your tailbone, your sit bones come off the chair a little. You're going to feel that your low back starts to activate. And then maybe take your shoulders back as if you're trying to stand up at attention or sit up at attention, right? And then notice what your head has to do to actually see me. It feels kind of congested, doesn't it? And then sometimes the arms will roll out, the legs will roll out. This is the green light response. Now I want you to shake that all off for me. Make sure you let go of it. So the green light response, or this backline activation, can happen in many of us when we're experiencing anxiety, when we're experiencing agitation, or when we're experiencing stress. We might have a response to go, to activate, to deal with that stress by, moving into the world. So when this gets overly done in our body, it stays in all the time, and we're always shortening our breath. We're always tight in the back line, and it's a really hard way to move through life. So that's just one response. So you remember that one, and then we'll move on to the next one. The next response that I want to look at is something called the red light, or the startle response. Again, another human response that all of us have, and it's really the idea of protecting our organs. But what happens with this response, this startle response, is it's actually the tightening of the muscles of the front body. So right now, if you tucked your tail underneath, right, and you curled your shoulders forward and you tightened your belly muscles, and maybe even let your shoulders roll in, your knees roll in. This is obviously a really big version of this, but it's this kind of curled in sensation. And what does that remind us of? This sensation feels like maybe what happens to us when we feel overwhelmed, when we start to withdraw, when we feel fatigue, when fatigue is like pulling us down. So this might feel familiar to you. Let's again come out of that, shake that off. That's the red light response. So remember if that feels familiar in your system. And then one more response I want to speak to, and that is called the cringe response, sometimes called the trauma response. And the cringe response is an activation of the side of the body, either into lateral flexion. So just do this favor to me and just lean to one side. So this actually happens to me when I sit at my computer for a long time as well. But it's a side lateral flexion, or maybe even a twist in the body. So maybe one shoulder is forward, one shoulder is back, or one hip and is forward, one is back. So this response, this cringe response, is activated a lot when we're in protection mode, right? When we have to sort of protect ourselves if trauma happens. It also happens in compensation. If you're a person that experiences neuropathy, and perhaps neuropathy on one side or pain on one side of your body, often that pain is happening there and the other side has to compensate. So this may naturally happen in your system when you're experiencing things like that. So these are the three responses, right? Green light, backline activation, maybe feel that in your body again. Red light, frontline activation, feel that in your body. And then a cringe or a trauma response, and that's a twist or a lateral flexion. So noticing those, you might just for a second sit, shake it all off again, and just sit in your space, close your eyes for a second, and just see if you can start to sort out maybe some of those habits in your system, those habits of engaging or withdrawing, the way that fatigue might come into your life or compensation comes into your life. And just know that these are sometimes the truth of what we experience, and that sometimes that can go deep into our system. So just being with yourself and the truth of what might be there. And then remembering that this stuff can start to make its way deeply. So maybe you'll open your eyes for me again. This stuff can start to make its way deeply into our system. So this is the bad news, right? This is something we call sensory motor amnesia, where those muscles in whatever response pattern you have start to get activated, and you just can't go relax, relax, and let them relax. You actually have to give new information in order for them to relax. This is called sensory motor amnesia, or you'll hear me call it SMA. So these contractions go deep, they become involuntary, and we somehow can now not release them until we start to bring in new information to those muscles. And that we'll be doing during our time in practice today. How do we do this? Well, the good news is that the way back from SMA and the stress responses is simple practices, really. And really, ultimately, it's with an internal focus. So I want to look at these things called, I like to call deceptions, and they're types of perception that you are already using. And one in particular that I want us to try to work with a lot today. So we're all pretty good at exteroception, the ability to sense what's happening around us. I want you to just look around for a second and notice all the things that you see in your space, right? I have plants. I have a cat that's coming into the room. She's like on cue. She's going to cry for us. I have light. I have traffic noise, all kinds of different things that are coming in from the outside. That's exteroception. So we get pretty good at dealing with those things. Then we have proprioception. Proprioception is knowing where we are in space. So if you started to move your arms around, knowing that your arm is moving in front of you or in back of you, knowing when you walk through a room that you're not going to run into your desk or something, being able to sense where something is on the floor. That's proprioception. Proprioception is really important as well to our well-being, and so we're going to try to increase that as well. The one that's around the circle is something called neuroception or nociception. And this is our ability to sense and experience pain or danger. And unfortunately, what I find for those of us with vasculitis, this starts to get pretty heightened in our system. We experience pain. We almost even sometimes anticipate this pain. And so that can start to be turned on really a lot in our systems. And the one best way to start to soften the expression or that grip of that pain sensor is the last one I want to talk about, and that's interoception, our ability to sense ourselves from within. knowing, what we feel like, being able to tell when we're, a little bit overdone, or when we need to rest, or we need good food, or we need companionship, or any of those things. Sometimes when you're experiencing complex medical diagnosis, we don't pay attention to that because the other things are so loud. And so now what I want to say is, if we can start to increase this interoceptive ability, we find that we start to feel much better. So that's the work we're going to do today. All right, just a little bit more here. So the last slide I want to mention here is that we will be working with learning our motor competence, bringing in interoception, and learning how to relax those stuck muscles, relax those areas of our body that are tightened, and even relax the stress responses in multiple ways. So we're going to be doing something called appandiculation, which is a conscious contraction of a muscle, and then a softening of a muscle on purpose. It's going to increase our interoception. It's going to help us decrease pain. And what we'll also be doing during this time is softening those stress responses, the many different types, and I'll kind of talk about them as I move us through them. And then, of course, it helps us re-educate these muscles, and ultimately we have less sensory motor amnesia, less pain. Our nervous systems get softened and stress starts to diminish. So we get more ease. So that's our, sort of the download of many different things about what we're going to do today. And now what I want to do is start to share this work with you. So I've stopped sharing my screen. And now I hope that you can find a comfortable place to sit. And when I say that, that means that your feet should be able to touch the ground, and that you should have a nice bend in your knees. You should have a chair that you can feel like you're stable in. So if you need to grab any other props or anything like that to help you with that, please go ahead and do that. And then the first thing we'll do is actually just experience the sensation of pressing our feet into the floor. So I'm going to back my chair up so you can see my feet a little bit more. So both feet are going to press into the floor. This is a practice that we call stabilization. And so many times through the practice, I might ask you to press your feet down or your hands into your legs. And it's grounding, stabilizing, feeling ourselves connected to the earth, and feeling ourselves like bring on our own muscles. So just try that a couple times. Press in and release. Try that for me just another time or two, feeling that sense of pressing down and releasing. And maybe you experience, like I do, when I press into my feet or press down onto my legs, I have a bit of a sense of a lift through my system. I'm using the ground to help me lift up in space. Okay. Now, depending on what you're experiencing, whether it's green light, that anxiousness or agitation, red light, that withdrawal or fatigue or shutdown, or that cringe response, maybe a compensation, you might need a different thing at any different time during a practice. So I'll give a couple of options for that throughout our practice. But for right now, I think all of us might want to think about just shaking out our arms and our legs, and just to let any sort of residual bit of the day and just shake it out a little bit. Shake out your shoulders. Let yourself kind of shimmy on your seat. And then once you've gotten to do that a few times, then let yourself get settled, that center. I'm going to have you once again start to notice what's happening in the room for you again. This is called orienting to space. Really important to do as we move into practices. I want you to see if you can take in the sounds of the room, and maybe even the sounds outside the room that you're in. And of course, the sound of my voice as well. How many layers of sound can you experience? So we're using the senses, that sense of sound, of hearing, to bring us to the present moment. Many of us are often pretty scattered. And so using the senses to bring us here for our practice is really helpful. So you've used a bit of sight, seeing your room, and a bit of sound, hearing what's happening. And now let's just take a sense of touch here. So I'll have you bring your hands to your legs first and just kind of go back and forth a couple of times, just having that sense of your hand touching your knees, your fingertips moving, and just see if you can feel how that feels. And then I'm going to ask you to go ahead and just soften that movement and start to close your eyes just for a little bit. And if eyes closed doesn't feel good to you today, just soften them somewhere. Have a soft gaze. And now I want us to just start to sense that interoceptive ability. What are you noticing right here and now in your experience? It might be your thoughts. It might be some part of your body that's calling your attention because it feels tired or sore, or because it feels really good. Maybe you sense your own breath or your own heartbeat. Just let yourself have a tour of awareness of your own being. A couple more breaths here. And then I'm going to have us actually start to open our eyes and do some conscious breathing. So when we want to start to change our nervous system, we want to start to get from our sympathetic engagement, or that sort of fight, flight, activate response, to more of our parasympathetic activation. And that's more of the rest, digest. There's many layers to it, but that's a simple way of thinking of it. And so one of the ways we can do this is start to bring in diaphragmatic breathing and working with the vagus nerve. So I'm going to ask you to take one hand to your belly and one hand to your chest, and just see if you can let your elbows just rest along the side so that you're not having to really hold yourself. Just gently touching here. And then we're going to take a few breaths. And if you can, I'm going to have you just breathe in and out through the nose. And I want you to notice, is the upper hand moving, the hand that's on your chest, or is the lower hand moving more? The one that's on that area of the respiratory diaphragm, the main muscle of respiration. So for the next few breaths, I'm going to invite you on the inhale really to notice this hand on the belly as it expands. And then on the exhale, that hand move back toward the spine. So you're really sensing that movement in and out of breath. While my cat sings to us all. Now, if you can, let yourself have that inhale. Soften your gaze. Soften your jaw. Exhale. You might feel a sigh, a yawn, or a stutter in the breath come in at any time during this sort of reset that we're working with. Good. Now see if you can relax your jaw again. Now I'm going to invite you to take the hand that's on your chest and bring it to the top of your head. Now very gently just press down on the top of your head. Just easy does it, pressing down on the top of your head. Let's take 3 breaths just like this. Relax your shoulders. And then take that same hand and bring it across to the other side of your neck. So right behind your ear on that other side. And then what I'm going to have us slowly start to do is draw that hand down the side of your face, down the side of your neck, turn your head, and bring the hand to the heart center. Now, once the hand's at the heart center here, you are either going to press deeply into the heart, almost like you're giving yourself a little heart hug, or you're going to experiment with just kind of moving the hand from side to side, almost like you're shaking or shimmying or breaking up any tension there. Okay. And then let's go ahead and take our face back to the front of the room. We're going to do that several times. This is working with the polyvagal system. So again, hand behind the ear, right behind the ear, maybe even the thumb in front of the ear, slowly drawing that material of the neck. Think about yourself as petting. This is a poly pet. Heading down to the heart center as you turn the head, and either pressing in toward the heart if you need to calm anxiety, or maybe just moving the hand around if you need to sort of shake loose that feeling of overwhelm. Again, you might feel that sigh, that yawn, a stutter in the breath. Let's try that just one more time. Coming on over to that same side, really allow yourself to feel like you're giving yourself a good pet. Letting your head turn, and then finding that space at the heart center and either a heart hug or that shimmying of the hand, breaking up that tension. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and take our arms down, let the hands come to the legs. And easy does it, press the hands into the legs and just stabilize for a second. And use that sense of interoception and proprioception. Notice the side you worked with versus the side you haven't. Good. Now let's start that on the second side. Let's bring our hand on top of our head. The other hand, the hand that hasn't been there yet, if you can remember. If you want to, you can bring the other hand to your belly, or you can just leave it on your leg. You choose. And then right here, let's just press gently down onto the head. No strain in the neck. Take a couple breaths here. And then when you're ready, bring that hand to the other side of the neck, the one you haven't been visiting yet. So then when you're ready here, you're going to turn your face in that direction as you draw the hand along the side of the neck, down toward the heart center. Find that heart center and either just give it that bit of a heart hug, squeezing in, that stable force, or again, a little bit of almost soothing or breaking up that sensation of tension there by moving the hand side to side, up and down. And then in your own timing, let's just try that 2 more times, right? See if you can find that sense of just giving yourself a soothing touch. And you're working with these wonderful nerves that are running down the side of the face, the side of the neck, moving down toward the heart center, and that nerve even ends way down deep into the belly. So we're working with that. One more time. Okay, so then let's just soften the hands back down, find your seat again, find your hands on your knees. And again, quietly just closing the eyes, get a sense of yourself. Remember that version of yourself from a few minutes ago before you started the practice, and then notice, do you feel now more focused, more relaxed? Has your breath softened? All right, I love to start with these practices a lot of the time. Sometimes just using this as a practice when I have stress or when things are happening in my system that I just need to bring down my stress response. It really supports me almost every time. And now what I want to do is start to bring this more to the physical body. And we're going to move into some of those stress responses in and out. And the idea here is consciously releasing those stress responses. So the first thing I'm going to have us do is actually to move into the red light response. We're going to draw our navel center back, tuck our tail, bring our shoulders forward. See if you can feel that sort of withdrawal response in the body. Feel how tight that is for your breathing, maybe even how that might feel like a bit smothering in a way. And so then what I want you to do is really consciously release, lengthen, open all along the whole body, and just notice that feeling of openness. Now, one of the main areas we used to get there was this area from the navel down. We moved the pelvis. So we're going to do that, and we're going to move into what is called a flatten. So you're going to tuck your tail and draw the navel center back. You're just going to leave the upper part of the body relaxed. So a couple times tucking and coming back to neutral. So you're activating these deep muscles of that stress response and then relaxing them. One more time. Good. You can see I'm curling that tail under and then coming back to neutral. So then we're going to go around to the other side and activate the green light response muscles. So if you remember, this was the shoulders were back, the tailbone and sit bones came off of the mat or off of the seat that you're on. The whole back line got some pretty good tension in it. It feels like a big arch in the back. Maybe you let the arms roll out too. So that's a big version of it. And then I want you to just release that. And then now see if you can again come to that navel center down and see if you can create that just in the low body. It's called an arch. Rolling the sit bones and tailbone up off of the seat and then back, letting the low back relax. So I want you to just try that a couple times. I'll be quiet. Okay, can't resist talking. So hopefully you're getting a sense of how that low back really starts to tighten. When this bridge, our belly or our low back, either side is tight, it causes lots of different pain systems through our body to activate. So we want to see if we can consciously move in and out of this practice multiple times. So we're going to marry those two practices together. You're going to go into your arch. The back line is activated. You're going to let that neutral go into neutral, and then you're going to curl the tail under. Just a couple times, feeling that sensation come and go. If you work at a desk, or if you sit at a desk or sit in a car, this is a great practice to do to keep yourself pain-free. One more time. Come back to neutral. And then let's travel back up the spine to the shoulders. And I'm going to have us start to work with the shoulders and neck and then bring it all together. So the first thing I'll do is just make sure that we have clear access to our head and neck and shoulders. So I'll have you turn your head from side to side. Slow and steady, just noticing, is it easier to turn to the right or to the left? Is a simple act of moving your head from side to side helping you get a little bit more in touch with what's happening in your body. Come back through center and very gently start to nod the head. Careful, mindful, doesn't have to be big, just easy does it. Good. Come back through center. And then here we go. We're going to start with the shoulders. I'm going to ask you to bring your shoulders up towards your ears. This is called elevation. And so much is going on here when we're in elevation. Now slowly release these down. See if they move without any jerks. If they move smooth, or if you notice some of those jerks or shimmies or they drop out. Try that a couple of times. Elevation to relaxation. On this next time, I'm going to invite you to take those shoulders up. At the same time, jut your chin slightly out so you're tightening the back of the neck. And then soften those shoulders down. Soften your neck. Oof. See if you can do that a couple more times, feeling not just the lift of the shoulders and that tightness of the back of the neck, but maybe the shoulder blades gliding up your back body. Can you get your awareness around to the back of your body as well? One more time. Good. Now, I'm going to have us do a little bit of differentiation. I'd love for you to just raise one shoulder and let one shoulder go down. So one shoulder is in elevation, one shoulder's in the slight depression down toward our waist. So this area of the body is so important to free up. We're working in this area of the rib cage, the shoulders, the shoulder blades. When there's tightness or pain in here, it causes constriction and it builds those stress responses. So now let's try to get a little bit more fancy. The next time you bring one shoulder up, look toward that shoulder, turn your head toward that shoulder, and then switch. Oh, I had a nice sigh start to happen in my system. I'm starting to relax. Hopefully you're relaxing as well. Let's do one more on each side. Good. And then sigh. Letting it all come down. Let's shake out our arms. And then let's start to move into another pattern that happens in this body in the green light and the red light pattern. So if you were going into red light, those shoulders would come forward. So see if you can start to squeeze the shoulders forward and notice there's a tightening in the chest here. Pecs are tight. And then bring the shoulders back in alignment and then start to take the shoulders back into retraction. So this pattern is protraction forward. That's the red light response. Come back to neutral. See if you can find where neutral is, and then retraction back. That's the green light response, right? So let's just try that a couple of times. You're going to see that I'm letting my hands travel on my legs as I move into this pattern. You could do that the same if you'd like. So we're trying to free up that activation a little. Red light and green light. Now, if you'd like, the next time you bring your shoulders forward, just tuck your chin a little bit. And the next time you bring your shoulders back, let your head come back. Just a couple of times, having that nodding sensation. And then soften. Now, just like we did with elevation and depression, I'm going to have us differentiate. So we're going to bring one shoulder back, one shoulder forward. This is that trauma or cringe response in the body. Maybe you can start to sense how it's coming into the ribs, into the lower half of the body as well. So let's just go back and forth, very consciously moving in and out. I love, again, to bring my hands to my lap. The shoulder that's moving back, that hand's coming toward my hips, and the shoulder that's moving forward, that hand is coming away. Simple twists in the body. Now, if you'd like, again, to add the head and neck, the next time you bring a shoulder forward, look over at that shoulder, almost like you're looking past it. Easy does it start to unwind, go the other direction. Relax your jaw, soften your face. Try at least one more to each side if you can. Good, and then meet me back here at middle. Let's just roll through the shoulders a couple times here. And relax. Now, we've been working, again, shoulders and pelvis. We're connecting them. One of the things I want to play with here is a little bit of lateral flexion. So all you need to do is just start to tip the shoulders one way or the other. And maybe even notice, is there one way that's easier for you to go? Oof, there certainly is for me. Back and forth. Okay, so then From here, let's add on just a little bit. If you'd like to, you could bring one hand behind your head and start to lean opposite of that hand. And then try the second side. Bring that hand up and lean. Now, if that feels comfortable, you could just stay with that. It's great movement in the limbs. It's great movement through the trunk. Or you could make this a little bit bigger, just letting the arms stay long. Nice lateral flexion happening here on purpose, moving in and out. Maybe one more to each side. Good. And then meeting me back at center. Let's do a little bit of stabilization. So finding your feet again, rolling through the ankles, rolling through the knees, just shimmying the legs a little, then pressing into the feet, pressing into the legs. Get that sense of length through the spine, and then soften. Notice if you brought on a habit of red light, green light, or cringe, and see if you can get your pelvis neutral, sit bones moving down toward the floor. One more time, press into the legs, that length up through the spine. Soften the breath, let the breath come back down into the belly. And then if you'd like, maybe with your hands at that heart center, just squeezing into the heart center a little. And then you could just simply let the elbows rise up and come back down if that's best in your body, or if you'd like, you could join me bringing the arms up overhead and then back down. So we think about this as a sun breath. So again, it can be simple. Elbows just could come up if the arms feel too heavy, or you could join me in inhaling, taking the arms overhead, exhaling, letting the arms come back down. Let's try one more time, just that simpler version. Good. Now, I want to build onto this. So all of those movement patterns we've been doing with arch and flatten, we can build a sun breath that actually moves with it. So when you take your arms up, arch your back a tiny bit. Let that tailbone curl up off of the mat or off of the chair. And as you bring your arms back down, let yourself curl forward. Arms up, inhale. Arms down, exhale, curl forward. Beautiful sun breath, just like a sun salutation here in our chairs. One more. Lovely. Find your way back to that center. I want to do a bit of a warrior pose for us today. And so I'll show us a couple different versions of this. And so warrior could be a warrior surrender. The arms could be right here at our sides, sort of like a cactus or a surrender arms. It's a lovely way to have a little bit of softening. Or if you want, you could lift those arms up in a more traditional sort of way that you might see on those covers of Yoga Journal or on Instagram, where those arms are up in the air. And then relax back down through the center, and then release back down toward the sides. Okay, so we're going to take that warrior, we're going to extend one leg out forward, and then choose either arms up, arms at cactus, or warrior surrender, or even arms down by your side. Release the leg. And again, do the second side now. Leg up, maybe the arms are coming up in surrender or down by your sides. Let's try it one more time on each side. You choose a version that feels best in your body. Hold and notice. Feel the breath moving and release. Let yourself really let go. Second side. Soften your shoulders. Release back down. So then let's just take a little bit of a twist here. Hands on the legs again, looking over one shoulder and then the other, just letting the body twist, 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 twist. Shaking out the arms, shaking out the legs, softening back, finding a way to comfortably engage with the seat that you're in, or if you're a person at home that wants to lay down on the ground or on a couch or a bed, you're welcome to do that. We're going to do a couple of moments of relaxation and softening here. So finding your comfortable space to be, and take the time to adjust. You've just spent a lot of time cluing into your own system. So see if you can take that extra step in meeting the needs of your system. Relaxing your knees, taking the bend a little bit out, softening the arms, maybe turning the palms up, letting the backs of the wrists rest on your legs. If it feels good to you, close your eyes. And start to get a sense again of that wonderful, gentle breath. No extra engagement, just the breath coming in and out. And here, softening the body. Noticing those places that you maybe hold tension. I often have to soften my brow, relax my jaw. Let my tongue find a comfortable place in my mouth. You can have that experience of even softening in the eardrums, the palate. Let the shoulders relax, the arms be relaxed and at ease on either side. Feel that rhythm of your breath coming in and out. Maybe even concentrating on the expansion and contraction in the body that just naturally occurs. Consciously bring a little softening to the area of the hips and the pelvis. Even allowing the legs to be a little heavier into the surface they're on. Enjoying the experience of being relaxed and at ease, but aware and awake. Taking simple time to strengthen our connection to that ability to be relaxed and at ease, and aware and awake. Your mind wanders. Get back to the sensation of your breath just for a few more moments. Mentally repeating just this. Just this. Inhaling just. Exhaling this. Nothing more to attend to, just this. And then noticing here your thoughts as they move out of the practice. Feelings, sensations, anything that starts to bubble up in your system. I often find that end of practice, I have a hope for myself. I allow that to surface, to plant itself in my consciousness. And then I'll invite us all either to bring one hand on top of the other at the heart center, or the two hands together, fingertips touching, moving them into the heart center. Thank you for practicing with me today and for taking good care of yourself. Namaste. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you for offering us that piece, Molly. I think we're all probably still just processing that and taking that in. We do have a couple of questions for you, and I will just remind everyone, if you have any more, we have a couple minutes. Feel free to put some questions in the chat, and maybe Molly will get a chance to answer them. The first question for you, Molly, someone said, Molly, have you found it challenging to be mindful of when you take your meds and when you practice yoga? I find I need to wait for several hours after taking steroids because of their effect on the nervous system.
Yes and no. I find that definitely if I was going to go to a class or be in a bigger class, I would want to wait. But I actually find that sometimes if I'm taking my steroids, when I'm on steroids, I actually need to do some softening of my nervous system, some grounding. You'll notice that my mat has a really nice, soft, squishy thing on it. I've got lots of good pillows around, that I actually really try to hug myself a lot when I'm experiencing that. I try to dissipate my energy with more moving things, and then I really try to ground myself. So this practice right here is super helpful for that, and this practice right here. So hopefully that helps, because there's a definite need. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The next question is, how often do you need to practice something like this in order to notice a difference in your well-being and your body?
Well, I think that you could learn to practice 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes every couple of days. And that would be a tremendous, like, you could do an experiment. Give yourself a week or two where you consciously do some breathing, you consciously move in and out of those really simple movement patterns, and then see how you feel in 2 weeks. If just giving yourself 5 minutes a day doing it. And I think that you find that you don't need a lot of time. You just need a little bit of consistency. It's more about checking in and being connected to yourself in these practices than the specific movements themselves sometimes.
I love that. So it doesn't feel overwhelming. 5 minutes. Yeah.
I know that we have a lot we have to do. And I think that, many people think, oh, if I don't have an hour to spend on my mat, I'm not going to get there. And I think you can do yoga anywhere, and you can practice this stuff in short little bursts, and any effort that way is beneficial to you, even the slightest bit.
We have another question. Are there any better movements for neuropathy in the legs?
Yes, there are definitely, I could do a whole class on neuropathy at some point, I think, but I do some work where we actually do adduction and adduction, where we're moving the legs in and out in the hip sockets, where we do some movements that are actually getting sensation or connecting the sensory motor loop all the way out to the feet. And so lots of good practices there that I teach in my Tuesday morning classes and things like that too. And I'd love to come back and do it again.
Yeah, we would love that. And in fact, there's a couple of questions in the chat now about, will this video be available to view again? Yes, we're recording this right now. So I'm like, what day is it today? So either by the end of the week or early next week, it'll be available on our website and our YouTube channel. But I wanted to, Molly, I believe you teach classes online too that people can access.
Yes, I teach every Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m. Central Time, and it is a floor or chair based. So floor can be on your bed or on your couch if you can't get on the floor, or chair based class. And that's every Tuesday. And I am also, we have 3 years worth of recorded classes and something we call SomaYoga Anytime. So that's a really good, because you can search a class for neuropathy, and I have classes, things like that. So there's lots of resources that way. I'd love to see people. I also work independently with people privately as well.
And I'm just putting your website in the chat, somayogainstitute.com. Is that?
No, that's not it. Sorry, it's yoganorthduluth.com.
Oh, sorry. Oh gosh. So everyone ignore that first chat. I shouldn't have gone right ahead.
Okay.
I should have had this open already. Sorry, can you tell me what it is again?
yoganorthduluth.com.
Okay. All right. Duluth, I'm getting that. Apologize for the technical difficulties and my rush. Okay. Putting this one in the chat. Ignore the first one. Here's the second one. And Deborah's asking, is that on YouTube? It sounds like you teach these over Zoom, your classes, right? And then have a library.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it for now. Molly, again, thank you so much for offering this. I know I feel more at ease now, and I'm sure everyone's going to take this beyond today and into their lives. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I am happy to give the PowerPoint if anybody wants that too. So just let me know if you want to.
And yeah, in fact, you know what, Molly, if you can, sorry, the housekeeping, if you can send me the PowerPoint, I will also make sure that the PowerPoint and the correct website gets emailed to everyone so that they can find you.
Good. Okay. And I want to say, everybody, take really good care of yourself right now. Sometimes you can get a little sore or fatigued after doing this work, but it goes away. It's sort of like a cleansing response. So it was so great to be with you all. I really appreciate it.
And I know you can't see the chat because you're far away, but lots of thank yous and gratitude. And so we're also grateful to everyone who came tonight. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.